CLEP History Roman Empire. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History Roman Empire clue? Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election? Option A. Whiskey Rebellion. Option B. Holocaust. Option C. Secession. Option D. French Revolution. The correct answer is option C. Secession. This points to secession because secession led directly to the Civil War. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. And French Revolution points instead to old minus regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change. Question 2. How would a CLEP history question most likely test this clue? European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century? Option A. World War I. Option B. Columbian Exchange. Option C. New Imperialism. Option D. Federal Reserve Act. The correct answer is option C. New Imperialism. This points to new imperialism because imperialism sought resources, markets, prestige, and strategic advantage. World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home. Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. And Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History Roman Empire? English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215. Option A. Baby boom. Option B. Magna Carta. Option C. Peloponnesian War. Option D. Sputnik. The correct answer is option B. Magna Carta. This points to Magna Carta because the charter became associated with rule of law. Baby boom points instead to birth rates rose after World War II. Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. And Sputnik points instead to the Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? A deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws? Option A. Magna Carta. Option B. Continuity and change. Option C. Triangle shirtwaist fire. Option D. United Nations. The correct answer is option C. Triangle shirtwaist fire. This points to Triangle Shirtwaist Fire because the disaster exposed dangerous industrial working conditions. Magna Carta points instead to English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215. Continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. And United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 5. Where does this clue point in CLEP history content? The disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Option A. Muckrakers. Option B. Source bias. Option C. Compromise of 1877. Option D. Voting Rights Act of 1965. The correct answer is option C. Compromise of 1877. This points to Compromise of 1877 because the compromise marked the end of Reconstruction. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. And Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests and voting. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History Roman Empire clue. Religious revival stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Option A. Trail of Tears. Option B. Great Awakening. Option C. Declaration of Independence. Option D. Peace of Westphalia. The correct answer is option B. Great Awakening. This points to Great Awakening because the revivals shaped colonial religion and encouraged more individual religious choice. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. And Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. The United States funded European recovery after World War II. Option A. Radical Republicans. Option B. Galileo. Option C. Marshall Plan. Option D. Abolitionism. The correct answer is option C. Marshall Plan. This points to Marshall Plan because the plan aimed to rebuild economies and resist communism. Radical Republicans points instead to a congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views, and abolitionism points instead to reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP- style clue. A heliocentric model placed the Sun at the center of the solar system. Option A. Constitutional Convention. Option B. Copernicus. Option C. Transcontinental Railroad. Option D. Martin Luther. The correct answer is option B. Copernicus. This points to Copernicus because his theory challenged geocentric astronomy. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. And Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 9. Determine which answer explains this CLEP History Roman Empire clue. A Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Option A. Trail of Tears. Option B. Charlemagne. Option C. D-Day. Option D. Conservatism. The correct answer is option B. Charlemagne. This points to Charlemagne because his coronation linked kingship with the church in medieval Europe. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. D-Day points instead to Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. And conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I. Option A. Homestead Act. Option B. Mussolini. Option C. Glorious Revolution. Option D. Red Scare. The correct answer is option B. Mussolini. This points to Mussolini because his regime became an early model of fascist rule. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power, and Red Scare points instead to fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. Question 11. Pinpoint in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue. Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper and tea. Option A. Conservatism. Option B. Townshend Acts. Option C. Triangular trade. Option D. Jamestown. The correct answer is option B. Townshend Acts. This points to Townshend Acts because the acts renewed colonial protests against imperial taxation. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Option A. Reign of Terror. Option B. Ancient Egypt. Option C. Glorious Revolution. Option D. Fascism. The correct answer is option C. Glorious Revolution. This points to Glorious Revolution because the event limited monarchy and supported constitutional government. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization. And Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 13. Compare the options and choose the one tied to this clue. Journalists exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Option A. Renaissance humanism. Option B. Triangle shirtwaist fire. Option C. Monorealism. Option D. Muckrakers. The correct answer is option D. Muckrakers. This points to muckrakers because their reporting helped build support for progressive reforms. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Triangle shirtwaist fire points instead to a deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws, and monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society. Question 14. Connect this CLEP History Roman Empire clue to the right answer. Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Option A, 17th Amendment. Option B, Watergate. Option C, English Civil War. Option D, Roman Republic. The correct answer is option D, Roman Republic. This points to Roman Republic because the Republic influenced later ideas of mixed government. 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation, and English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. Old-regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change? Option A, Crusades. Option B, French Revolution. Option C, Hammurabi's Code. Option D, Treaty of Versailles. The correct answer is option B, French Revolution. This points to French Revolution because the revolution transformed France and Europe. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the eastern Mediterranean. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy, and Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue. Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare, and civil rights? Option A, Saratoga. Option B, Great Society. Option C, Federalist Papers. Option D, Roe v. Wade. The correct answer is option B, Great Society. This points to Great Society because the initiative expanded the welfare state and federal reform efforts. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power, and Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Question 17. Interpret this clue and choose the best answer. A historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Option A, thesis statement. Option B, Vietnam War. Option C, Mexican-American War. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option A, thesis statement. This points to thesis statement because a thesis guides interpretation rather than merely listing facts. Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Mexican-American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. The Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education? Option A, Sputnik. Option B, iconoclasm. Option C, Dred Scott decision. Option D, Voting Rights Act of 1965. The correct answer is option A, Sputnik. This points to Sputnik because the event raised U.S. fears of falling behind technologically. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Dred Scott decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. And Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests in voting. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean? Option A, Crimean War. Option B, Hebrew monotheism. Option C, Punic Wars. Option D, continuity and change. The correct answer is option C, Punic Wars. This points to Punic Wars because the wars helped transform Rome into a major empire. Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Hebrew monotheism points instead to belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion, and continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. Revivalism inspired reform movements such as abolition and temperance. Option A, Reign of Terror. Option B, Second Great Awakening. Option C, Continuity and Change. Option D, Atomic bombings. The correct answer is option B, Second Great Awakening. This points to Second Great Awakening because the movement connected religious energy with social reform. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Continuity and Change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time, and atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 21. Match this CLEP History Roman Empire clue with the correct answer. Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Option A, New Imperialism. Option B, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option C, Renaissance Humanism. Option D, Saratoga. The correct answer is option B, Civil Rights Act of 1964. This points to Civil Rights Act of 1964 because the law became a landmark federal civil rights measure. New imperialism points instead to European states' expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement, and Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Question 22. Distinguish in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? The English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England? Option A, Henry VIII. Option B, Brown v. Board of Education. Option C, Declaration of Independence. Option D, Seneca Falls Convention. The correct answer is option A, Henry VIII. This points to Henry VIII because the break began the English Reformation. Brown v. Board of Education points instead to the Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king, and Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Question 23. Locate in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country? Option A, Dust Bowl. Option B, Triangular trade. Option C, Charlemagne. Option D, Mercantilism. The correct answer is option D, Mercantilism. This points to mercantilism because the system treated colonies as sources of wealth for an imperial power. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. Events are placed in correct time order. Option A, chronology. Option B, Bacon's Rebellion. Option C, Weimar Republic. Option D, Wilmot Proviso. The correct answer is option A, chronology. This points to chronology because chronology helps students recognize cause, sequence, and periodization. Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. And Wilmot Proviso points instead to a proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico. Question 25. Decide in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? A philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification? Option A, militarism. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Second Great Awakening. Option D, Pearl Harbor. The correct answer is option B, Aristotle. This points to Aristotle because his writings influenced science, ethics, and politics for centuries. Militarism points instead to arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance, and Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Question 26. Evaluate in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Land holding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Option A, Byzantine Empire. Option B, Marshall Plan. Option C, chronology. Option D, feudalism. The correct answer is option D, feudalism. This points to feudalism because the system organized political and military obligations. Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 27. Consider this clue and identify the historical match. The 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth. Option A, conservatism. Option B, GI Bill. Option C, Diocletian. Option D, stagflation. The correct answer is option D, stagflation. This points to stagflation because the problem challenged Keynesian policy assumptions. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II, and Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Question 28. Predict the answer. A CLEP item is targeting Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Option A, Roman Republic. Option B, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option C, Gilded Age. Option D, Embargo Act. The correct answer is option D, Embargo Act. This points to Embargo Act because the policy hurt American merchants and showed trade-war risks. Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a Senate, and checks among elites. Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests and voting, and Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth and deep inequality and political corruption. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. A source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Option A, Trail of Tears. Option B, Point of View. Option C, Nationalism. Option D, Darwinism. The correct answer is option B, Point of View. This points to point of view because understanding perspective helps evaluate evidence. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity, and Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. An American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Option A, secession. Option B, Saratoga. Option C, Monroe Doctrine. Option D, Shays Rebellion. The correct answer is option B, Saratoga. This points to Saratoga because the battle became a diplomatic turning point in the Revolution. Secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas, and Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Option A, Pearl Harbor. Option B, Reign of Terror. Option C, Lenin. Option D, Harriet Beecher Stowe. The correct answer is option A, Pearl Harbor. This points to Pearl Harbor because the attack ended U.S. neutrality in the war. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Lenin points instead to the Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I, and Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling. Question 32. Assess the clue and select a correct history term. A Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Option A, Missouri Compromise. Option B, Petrarch. Option C, Estates minus General. Option D, Voting Rights Act of 1965. The correct answer is option B, Petrarch. This points to Petrarch because he is often associated with early Renaissance humanism. Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Estates minus General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis, and Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests and voting. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. The United States promised aid to resist communist expansion. Option A, Truman Doctrine. Option B, Estates minus General. Option C, Charlemagne. Option D, Gilded Age. The correct answer is option A, Truman Doctrine. This points to Truman Doctrine because the policy became a foundation of Cold War containment. Estates minus general points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning, and Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth to deep inequality and political corruption. Question 34. Infer the answer from this short CLEP clue. Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party? Option A, Intolerable Acts. Option B, Punic Wars. Option C, 13th Amendment. Option D, European Union. The correct answer is option A, Intolerable Acts. This points to intolerable acts because the laws pushed colonies toward greater unity against Britain. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States, and European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. Radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic? Option A, 19th Amendment. Option B, Reign of Terror. Option C, Pearl Harbor. Option D, stagflation. The correct answer is option B, Reign of Terror. This points to Reign of Terror because the period showed the revolution's violent radical phase. 19th Amendment points instead to women gained constitutional protection for voting rights. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II, and stagflation points instead to the 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. Settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Option A, Cotton Gin. Option B, Marbury v. Madison. Option C, Augustus. Option D, Homestead Act. The correct answer is option D, Homestead Act. This points to Homestead Act because the act encouraged migration to the Great Plains. Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review, and Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the principate and launched the Pax Romana. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. Liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe? Option A, Missouri Compromise. Option B, Revolutions of 1848. Option C, Muckrakers. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option B, Revolutions of 1848. This points to revolutions of 1848 because most revolutions failed but revealed deep social and political tensions. Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Muckrakers points instead to journalists exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 38. Practice in CLEP History Roman Empire. Which answer fits this clue? Colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Option A, Decolonization. Option B, Great Compromise. Option C, Monroe Doctrine. Option D, Montesquieu. The correct answer is option A, Decolonization. This points to decolonization because the process ended many European empires. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. Thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Option A, Treaty of Versailles. Option B, McCarthyism. Option C, nationalism. Option D, Enlightenment. The correct answer is option D, Enlightenment. This points to Enlightenment because the movement influenced politics and reform in Europe and America. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare, and nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Option A, end of the Cold War. Option B, Constitutional Convention. Option C, Black Codes. Option D, causation. The correct answer is option C, Black Codes. This points to Black Codes because the codes showed white Southern resistance to emancipation. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse. Ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. And causation points instead to historians explain how one development helped produce another. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. The United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Option A, Watergate. Option B, John Locke. Option C, Lend-Lease. Option D, 19th Amendment. The correct answer is option C, Lend-Lease. This points to Lend-Lease because the policy moved the nation away from strict neutrality. Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. And 19th Amendment points instead to women gained constitutional protection for voting rights. Question 42. Solve this quick history clue. Schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Option A, medieval universities. Option B, Peace of Augsburg. Option C, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option D, Socrates. The correct answer is option A, medieval universities. This points to medieval universities because universities became centers of learning in medieval Europe. Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Marshall Plan in Europe points instead to US aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. And Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. Tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Option A, continuity and change. Option B, Great Depression. Option C, 13th Amendment. Option D, Dawes Act. The correct answer is option D, Dawes Act. This points to Dawes Act because the policy reduced tribal land holdings and attacked communal ownership. Continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures, and 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Question 44. Find the option that best fits this clue. Tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Option A, nullification crisis. Option B, Christianity. Option C, John Brown's raid. Option D, Reaganomics. The correct answer is option D, Reaganomics. This points to Reaganomics because the approach emphasized markets and reduced government intervention. Nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Christianity points instead to a religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe. And John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Question 45. Remember which topic connects to this clue. Historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Option A, Erie Canal. Option B, economic interpretation. Option C, scientific revolution. Option D, Japanese-American internment. The correct answer is option B, economic interpretation. This points to economic interpretation because economic factors often shape political and social developments. Erie Canal points instead to a canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. Scientific revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. And Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Question 46. Highlight in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? A Renaissance writer analyzed political power in the prince. Option A, Japanese-American internment. Option B, scientific revolution. Option C, Machiavelli. Option D, revolutions of 1848. The correct answer is option C, Machiavelli. This points to Machiavelli because his work separated politics from traditional moral advice. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Scientific revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature, and revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. The U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Option A, Stonewall Uprising. Option B, Roe v. Wade. Option C, Machiavelli. Option D, Japanese American internment. The correct answer is option D, Japanese American internment. This points to Japanese American internment because the policy reflected wartime fear and racial prejudice. Stonewall Uprising points instead to resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in the prince. Question 48. Clarify in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Option A, Peace of Westphalia. Option B, Trail of Tears. Option C, abolitionism. Option D, decolonization. The correct answer is option C, abolitionism. This points to abolitionism because the movement challenged slavery and intensified sectional conflict. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward, and decolonization points instead to colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. The federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank. Option A, Gettysburg. Option B, Hamilton's financial plan. Option C, triangular trade. Option D, agricultural revolution. The correct answer is option B, Hamilton's financial plan. This points to Hamilton's financial plan because the plan strengthened federal credit and promoted a more commercial economy. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And agricultural revolution points instead to improved farming, increased food production before industrialization. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. A Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Option A, Marbury v. Madison. Option B, storming of the Bastille. Option C, atomic bombings. Option D, Athenian democracy. The correct answer is option B, storming of the Bastille. This points to storming of the Bastille because the event became a symbol of revolutionary action. Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review. Atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Question 51. Differentiate the matching answer from other periods. European Christians launched military campaigns toward the Eastern Mediterranean. Option A, Constantine. Option B, Crusades. Option C, historical context. Option D, Vietnam War. The correct answer is option B, Crusades. This points to Crusades because the Crusades increased contact and conflict between regions. Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Historical context points instead to events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time, and Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. Belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion. Option A, Articles of Confederation. Option B, Hebrew monotheism. Option C, Montgomery bus boycott. Option D, 12 tables. The correct answer is option B, Hebrew monotheism. This points to Hebrew monotheism because monotheism became a major influence on later Western religious traditions. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest, and 12 tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. Question 53. Question: which answer a CLEP item would expect Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige? Option A, Spanish Armada. Option B, Renaissance humanism. Option C, Compromise of 1877. Option D, Marbury v. Madison. The correct answer is option A, Spanish Armada. This points to Spanish Armada because the defeat boosted English confidence and naval reputation. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South, and Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war. Option A, appeasement. Option B, Treaty of Versailles. Option C, Estates minus General. Option D, Sherman Antitrust Act. The correct answer is option A, appeasement. This points to appeasement because the policy failed to stop Nazi expansion. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Estates minus General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis, and Sherman Antitrust Act points instead to Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Question 55. Revisit in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Option A, Yalta Conference. Option B, Peace of Augsburg. Option C, Columbian Exchange. Option D, historical context. The correct answer is option B, Peace of Augsburg. This points to Peace of Augsburg because the settlement temporarily managed religious division in the Holy Roman Empire. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. And historical context points instead to events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time. Question 56. Discover which answer this CLEP clue describes. Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Option A, Yorktown. Option B, Henry VIII. Option C, Second Great Awakening. Option D, thesis statement. The correct answer is option A, Yorktown. This points to Yorktown because the victory effectively ended major fighting in the Revolution. Henry VIII points instead to the English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance, and thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. Federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi. Option A, Reaganomics. Option B, Indian Removal Act. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option B, Indian Removal Act. This points to Indian Removal Act because the law led to removals such as the Trail of Tears. Reaganomics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 58. Read the clue and select the matching topic. The Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Option A, liberalism. Option B, House of Burgesses. Option C, Byzantine Empire. Option D, Compromise of 1877. The correct answer is option C, Byzantine Empire. This points to Byzantine Empire because it continued Roman traditions long after the West fell. Liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia Assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government, and Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Question 59. Complete the exam style clue with the correct answer. Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Option A. Galileo. Option B. Chinese Exclusion Act. Option C. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option D. Common sense. The correct answer is option D. Common sense. This points to common sense because the pamphlet helped build popular support for breaking with Britain. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882, and Triangle Shirtwaist Fire points instead to a deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Question 60. Decode this history clue and choose the right answer. An abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Option A. Pearl Harbor. Option B. John Brown's raid. Option C. Atomic bombings. Option D. Causation. The correct answer is option B. John Brown's raid. This points to John Brown's raid because the raid increased sectional fear before the Civil War. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and causation points instead to historians explain how one development helped produce another. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. A congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Option A. Korean War. Option B. European Union. Option C. Spanish-American War. Option D. Radical Republicans. The correct answer is option D. Radical Republicans. This points to Radical Republicans because they pushed for civil rights and tighter terms for former Confederates. Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market, and Spanish-American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. Drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Option A. Dust Bowl. Option B. Great Compromise. Option C. Baby Boom. Option D. Chronology. The correct answer is option A. Dust Bowl. This points to Dust Bowl because the disaster worsened rural suffering and migration. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states. Baby Boom points instead to birth rates rose after World War II, and Chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 63. Rank the choices by relevance and pick the best match. Evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Option A. Martin Luther. Option B. Source bias. Option C. Progressive era. Option D. Treaty of Versailles. The correct answer is option B. Source bias. This points to source bias because recognizing bias improves historical interpretation. Martin Luther points instead to a monk-challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Progressive era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. And Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations, and territorial losses after World War I. Question 64. Prioritize in CLEP History Roman Empire. Which answer fits this clue? U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Option A. Henry VIII. Option B. Vietnam War. Option C. Socialism. Option D. Atomic bombings. The correct answer is option B. Vietnam War. This points to Vietnam War because the conflict deeply divided American society. Henry VIII points instead to the English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. And atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 65. Focus in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? CLE promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Option A, Townsend Acts. Option B, Chinese Exclusion Act. Option C, Weimar Republic. Option D, American System. The correct answer is option D, American System. This points to American System because the plan aimed to strengthen national economic development. Townsend Acts points instead to Parliament-taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea. Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882, and Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. The Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Option A, 30 Years' War. Option B, Crusades. Option C, Erie Canal. Option D, Roe v. Wade. The correct answer is option D, Roe v. Wade. This points to Roe v. Wade because the case became central to debates over privacy and reproductive rights. 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war, mixed religious and political conflict. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the eastern Mediterranean, and Erie Canal points instead to a canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. Question 67. Apply your CLEP history knowledge to this clue. A Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic? Option A, Louisiana Purchase. Option B, Julius Caesar. Option C, Italian unification. Option D, Crimean War. The correct answer is option B, Julius Caesar. This points to Julius Caesar because his rise exposed the Republic's political crisis. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy, and Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? A Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy? Option A, Weimar Republic. Option B, Hammurabi's Code. Option C, Continuity and Change. Option D, Chronology. The correct answer is option B, Hammurabi's Code. This points to Hammurabi's Code because the code is an early example of codified law. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 69. Promptly recognize which answer fits this clue. Popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops? Option A, Harlem Renaissance. Option B, secondary source. Option C, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option D, investiture controversy. The correct answer is option D, investiture controversy. This points to investiture controversy because the conflict tested church and state power in medieval Europe. Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events, and Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Question 70. Smartly select the best historical match. Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Option A, salutary neglect. Option B, glorious revolution. Option C, socialism. Option D, Aristotle. The correct answer is option A, salutary neglect. This points to salutary neglect because loose enforcement helped colonists develop habits of self-government. Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. And Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 71. Swiftly in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Option A, Rousseau. Option B, McCarthyism. Option C, Christianity. Option D, chronology. The correct answer is option B, McCarthyism. This points to McCarthyism because the term refers to anti-communist suspicion and aggressive investigations. Rousseau points instead to a thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty. Christianity points instead to a religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 72. Diligently review and choose the matching answer. A reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Option A, Reign of Terror. Option B, Jane Addams. Option C, Secession. Option D, Vietnam War. The correct answer is option B, Jane Addams. This points to Jane Addams because settlement houses addressed problems of industrial cities. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Secession points instead to southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election, and Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Question 73. Immediately in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, Stonewall Uprising. Option B, Articles of Confederation. Option C, Saratoga. Option D, Harriet Beecher Stowe. The correct answer is option A, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States, and Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. A severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Option A, muckrakers. Option B, Great Depression. Option C, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option D, Peace of Westphalia. The correct answer is option B, Great Depression. This points to Great Depression because the crisis transformed expectations of federal economic responsibility. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling, and Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. Scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Option A, Truman Doctrine. Option B, Bolsheviks. Option C, Renaissance humanism. Option D, Shays Rebellion. The correct answer is option C, Renaissance humanism. This points to Renaissance humanism because humanism shaped Renaissance art, education, and literature. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States' promised aid to resist communist expansion. Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917, and Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading this CLEP-style clue? Greek poems such as the Iliad and Odyssey preserved heroic ideals. Option A, Scientific Revolution. Option B, Newton. Option C, Homeric epics. Option D, Stalin. The correct answer is option C, Homeric epics. This points to Homeric epics because the epics shaped Greek cultural identity. Scientific revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. And Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans and political terror. Question 77. Think through this clue and identify the answer. People emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Option A, nationalism. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, point of view. Option D, United Nations. The correct answer is option A, nationalism. This points to nationalism because nationalism shaped unification movements and conflicts. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits. Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Option A, fall of Western Rome. Option B, storming of the Bastille. Option C, Mayflower Compact. Option D, Boston Tea Party. The correct answer is option C, Mayflower Compact. This points to Mayflower Compact because it showed an early colonial commitment to majority rule and civil government. Fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789, and Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select the correct option. Movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Option A, printing press. Option B, Marshall Plan. Option C, black codes. Option D, Roman Republic. The correct answer is option A, printing press. This points to printing press because printing accelerated the Renaissance and Reformation. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II. Black codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people, and Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Question 80. Study this clue and choose the matching history term. Delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Option A, iconoclasm. Option B, ancient Egypt. Option C, constitutional convention. Option D, Watergate. The correct answer is option C, constitutional convention. This points to Constitutional Convention because the meeting produced the U.S. Constitution in 1787. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization, and Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answer. Voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Option A, Lenin. Option B, 15th Amendment. Option C, European coal and steel community. Option D, corroboration. The correct answer is option B, 15th Amendment. This points to 15th Amendment because the amendment aimed to protect black male suffrage during Reconstruction. Lenin points instead to the Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I. European coal and steel community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II, and corroboration points instead to historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Question 82. Drill this history clue and pick the best match. Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Option A, Whiskey Rebellion. Option B, end of the Cold War. Option C, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option D, Cotton Gin. The correct answer is option C, Sherman Antitrust Act. This points to Sherman Antitrust Act because the law became an early federal tool against trusts. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry, and Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Question 83. Speedily in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Option A, Black Codes. Option B, Constitutional Convention. Option C, Trail of Tears. Option D, Montgomery bus boycott. The correct answer is option C, Trail of Tears. This points to Trail of Tears because the event shows the human cost of Indian removal policy. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances, and Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. The United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Option A, Spanish-American War. Option B, Dreyfus Affair. Option C, Montgomery bus boycott. Option D, 17th Amendment. The correct answer is option A, Spanish-American War. This points to Spanish-American War because the war marked a shift toward American imperial power. Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest, and 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Option A, Justinian Code. Option B, investiture controversy. Option C, historical context. Option D, Mayflower Compact. The correct answer is option A, Justinian Code. This points to Justinian Code because the code influenced later European legal systems. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. Historical context points instead to events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time, and Mayflower Compact points instead to pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. The 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Option A, mercantilism. Option B, prohibition. Option C, Homestead Act. Option D, Transcontinental Railroad. The correct answer is option B, prohibition. This points to prohibition because the policy reflected progressive moral reform and created enforcement problems. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements, and Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. The Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Option A, GI Bill. Option B, Montesquieu. Option C, Brown v. Board of Education. Option D, Henry VIII. The correct answer is option C, Brown v. Board of Education. This points to Brown v. Board of Education because the decision challenged the legal foundation of Jim Crow segregation. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers, and Henry VIII points instead to the English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Question 88. Sort the choices and pick the one. This clue describes Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Option A, D-Day. Option B, Peace of Westphalia. Option C, Great Awakening. Option D, Athenian democracy. The correct answer is option A, D-Day. This points to D-Day because the invasion opened a major Western front against Nazi Germany. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Great Awakening points instead to religious revivals stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority, and Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. A canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. Option A, Seneca Falls Convention. Option B, John Locke. Option C, Shays Rebellion. Option D, Erie Canal. The correct answer is option D, Erie Canal. This points to Erie Canal because it helped link Western farms to Eastern markets. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. And Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue. Revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power. Option A, Mussolini. Option B, Scientific Revolution. Option C, Charlemagne. Option D, Russian Revolution. The correct answer is option D, Russian Revolution. This points to Russian Revolution because the revolution created the first communist state. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I. Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. And Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Question 91. Mark the best response to this CLEP clue. Women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Option A, thesis statement. Option B, salutary neglect. Option C, Treaty of Versailles. Option D, women's suffrage. The correct answer is option D, women's suffrage. This points to women's suffrage because the movement challenged gender limits in political life. Thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763, and Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Question 92. Pick the option that completes this history clue. Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Option A, Emancipation Proclamation. Option B, Saratoga. Option C, Progressive Era. Option D, Reaganomics. The correct answer is option A, Emancipation Proclamation. This points to Emancipation Proclamation because it shifted the Civil War toward a war against slavery. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice, and Reaganomics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue. Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Option A, Charlemagne. Option B, Estates-General. Option C, Whiskey Rebellion. Option D, Peace of Augsburg. The correct answer is option C, Whiskey Rebellion. This points to Whiskey Rebellion because the episode demonstrated the strength of the new government. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Estates-General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis, and Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Option A, Jane Addams. Option B, Federal Reserve Act. Option C, Holocaust. Option D, 14th Amendment. The correct answer is option C, Holocaust. This points to Holocaust because the genocide became a central moral catastrophe of World War II. Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit, and 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens. Option A, Gettysburg. Option B, Fascism. Option C, Spanish Armada. Option D, 12 Tables. The correct answer is option D, 12 Tables. This points to 12 Tables because the laws were an early foundation of Roman legal tradition. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. And Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. The Supreme Court established judicial review. Option A, D-Day. Option B, 100 Years' War. Option C, Point of View. Option D, Marbury v. Madison. The correct answer is option D, Marbury v. Madison. This points to Marbury v. Madison because the case confirmed the court's power to declare laws unconstitutional. D-Day points instead to Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. 100 Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities, and Point of View points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. Historians explain how one development helped produce another. Option A, War of 1812. Option B, Louisiana Purchase. Option C, Causation. Option D, Stamp Act. The correct answer is option C, Causation. This points to causation because causation connects events rather than just listing dates. War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France, and Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. Veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Option A, Dreyfus Affair. Option B, stagflation. Option C, GI Bill. Option D, Kansas-Nebraska Act. The correct answer is option C, GI Bill. This points to GI Bill because the law helped expand the middle class. Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over anti-Semitism and military injustice divided society. Stagflation points instead to the 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth, and Kansas-Nebraska Act points instead to popular sovereignty reopened the slavery question in Western territories. Question 99. Resolve in CLEP History Roman Empire, which answer fits this clue? Industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. Option A, Newton. Option B, Plato. Option C, urbanization. Option D, agricultural revolution. The correct answer is option C, urbanization. This points to urbanization because city growth created new social problems and opportunities. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Plato points instead to a philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. And agricultural revolution points instead to improved farming increased food production before industrialization. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Option A, Calvinism. Option B, House of Burgesses. Option C, Munich Conference. Option D, Magna Carta. The correct answer is option C, Munich Conference. This points to Munich Conference because the agreement became a symbol of failed appeasement. Calvinism points instead to a Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government, and Magna Carta points instead to English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215.